All right, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. We have a fantastic singer-songwriter on the show today, S.G. Goodman. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Just here in Kentucky and waiting for the next thing.
Kentucky. You've been there your whole life, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I have. I don't think I can count this as living anywhere else, but I did, I kept my house in Kentucky and rented a room in Nashville for 6.5 months. Does that count as anything or
Well, yeah. What were you doing? You just out there like dabbling, like see if you like it, or were you songwriting?
I was trying. I don't know what I was doing actually. But I was thankful for it because when I moved down there, I had a roommate that was living at my house I'm in right now. So, I had a little money saved up, but not enough. And when I got down there, it was the first year I owned this house and I didn't escrow in on my property taxes. So I moved down there October of 2018 and about that time got my property tax bill and I was like, oh shit, I've got to stay here. I've got to get a job. I can't go back home. There's no jobs there. So I got a job and that's why I stayed so long. I had only planned on just going down there for a month.
Wow, what did you do?
I worked at a taco place called Moss Tacos and did my best to do my, version of networking, but really I was in charge of the soup station at Moss Tacos, which is a really popular little taco, white people tacos really is what it is, but it's real popular. Line out the door every day. And then when Guy Fieri, came in there every Christmas, you could tell when that show was in the reruns because
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody come in and be like, "Where'd Guy sit?" You know. But anyway, it was great. I was able to pay my taxes, and it was actually sitting outside before my serving shift drinking a Coke that I got an email saying that I was going to be linked in with Jim James. So that was right before my debut album was created. And so good memories.
Yeah, man, there's nothing better than getting an email like that. Here you are working at a taco place. You're trying to pay your property taxes. You're like,
Mhm.
what's going on? And then Jim James from My Morning Jacket says, hey, I'll co-produce your record. And then it's just complete game changer. I always say you have to stay in and to the end.
Well, I was doing my best. In fact, it's funny, my now publicist, who is a friend at that moment, um, the weekend before that happened, that would have been like a Monday or Tuesday. We were at a show, and he's British or whatever, and he's like, "Love, I know you would love for Jim James to co-produce this record, and I know you've done your best to, send it and see, but if he doesn't write you back by next week, you need to move on and make this record yourself." And then literally next time I was at work, that happened. So it was crazy.
That is crazy. Uh, you
Hmm.
know, I'll tell you, I had not heard of you, and somebody sent me over the record and asked me if you could do the podcast.
Hmm.
And I put on the new record, which is not out yet. It's going to be out June 20th, planting by the signs. And I get two, three songs in. Let me see here. Satellite into Fire Sign into I Could See the Devil. And I was like, oh, yeah. I just wrote back right away. I said, absolutely. Because I am a huge, huge fan of Car Wheels on the Gravel Road.
Oh,
And so when I heard this, it had flavors to me of when I first heard that record. Immediately, I was like, wow, who is this? I dig in. You've got two records before this. And, I fell in love with the record. So I had to have you on.
thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I'm a little disappointed. I thought you were gonna say that, they asked you to let me be on your podcast, and this whole podcast was gonna be about me trying to convince you to actually listen to it. You know, that
Well,
could have been more fun.
yeah. you know,
But
this record And the MJ Lenderman record, which absolutely has blown my mind, um, could be the top two records for me so far of 25. I don't really know if anybody's going to beat these two records, but I absolutely love your record.
Thank you. Let's go. Yeah, Jake, I've played a couple things with him and met all his people and sweet guy. And but yeah, I take that. I mean, Jake and Lucinda, obviously, that's two people you get, have any accolades around, then that's a good thing. So I appreciate that. Hmm.
Well, that was, kind of a magic time in music. I was playing music at that time when Car Wheels was out. And then you had, of course, Sun Volt and Wilco being there was, smashing in my stereo nonstop and 16 horsepower. So that whole era was
Yeah.
really amazing to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's still amazing. I mean, so many people, that's an area where they have been heavily influenced from. So, but yeah, I could imagine that that would have been crazy to experience firsthand, you know, especially out
Absolutely.
there in it. Hmm.
Absolutely. And I was lucky enough to play with a lot of those bands, open forum or whatever. So it seemed like such an amazing, you know, music community. It kind of reminded me of like Deadheads in a way where people were obsessed with alt country.
I mean, definitely, you brought up Sunvote. One of my pretty early run in my career was going out as a opening act for Sunvote. And have you ever been around them,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jay? Anyway, I didn't, Jay's kind of standoffish, and so I was like, well, when if he talks to me, I'll talk to him, but I'm not going to bother him. I'm pretty strict with myself and my band about being an opener and trying to be respectful. But yeah, his tour manager and those guys, they were funny. But back to what you were saying about like a cult following, I've been so fortunate to honestly cut my teeth with a lot of people who have the best, most intense fans and true listeners. And Sunvolt is one of those bands. John Moreland, I've done a lot of shows with him. It's cult, for sure. Jason Isbell, a lot of this stuff. And Margot Price, just cult. It's a real interesting thing. And in my opinion, that's what it's all about. You've found your people, and that's really cool.
Especially, especially these days, because if you can get um, an amazing community, you could pretty much play music every year and tour and make a living.
Yeah, and that's something I actually, because I have had the experience of going out with artists who really take care of their community. I think there's so much pressure on artists, including myself, not necessarily from my team, but just from the world you have to be growing, you have to ask people to follow and like you and there's more attention put on that instead of really building a community within the people who are your ride or dies. That's one reason, the last year I started a Substack and I am not sharing certain things that I do there anywhere else. I'm trying to cultivate that community of people who are interested and are going to be there in 15 years instead of me busting my ass trying to get this 16-year-old to follow me on Instagram when I'm opening for Tyler Childers or something, which is nice. And who knows, that person might be one of your ride or dies, but you have to take care of your people. And I think that's something that's a little bit lost when it comes to growth these days and trying to sustain a career, is exactly what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do comedy now
Hmm.
and I talk to people all the time on all the platforms. Unfortunately, I have to be on all these, platforms, but I can see when people are blown away, like, wow, I can't even believe you actually answered. I'm like, well, you took time out to say you loved my special.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a couple minutes to say thanks for checking it out. I come from the old world of like Metallica, grassroots, you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
when these are our freaks.
Yep, exactly. And I had one of my bandmates, he's no longer my bandmate right now. He does his own thing. He does like this jazz ambient jazz stuff. Anyway, he kind of melds in this world of like damn near like jam band stuff, but he's the one who taught me the phrase Wookiees, like the real hardcore like festival goers, and he was like, these are my people. And because he would make fun of me because I'm not always comfortable at festivals. They're hot and I'm so pale,
Yeah.
It's that just kills me. But anyway, you know, I've been able to watch, I guess, through him a little bit, like what that world of growing a fan base and getting it out there. He's like, yeah, if y'all want to record my show,
Yeah.
do it old school and get out there and do the tape recordings. I was on Universal or a subsidiary Universal for Old Time Feeling Teeth Marks. If anybody recorded my show and put it on the internet, that shit would be taken down
Gone.
in like 2 seconds. So I'm excited with this record to get to kind of have a hands-off approach with legalities and say, yeah, you know what? Let's be even more grassroots and, develop a community.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ways to do that is constantly switching the set list every night. That's a
Mhm.
huge thing. Putting in obscure covers, stuff,
Mhm.
deep tracks on your records that you've never played, all that stuff. It
Mhm.
excites the people. It makes them go a couple nights in a row. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've learned so much of that from the jam world. There are things from the jam world that I don't love, but there are things that I do love. And one of them is the people love music.
Oh yeah. And yeah, there's things I don't love about that world either. I was trying to lean in at this festival we were at in California. Mikey, he goes by Rich Roof, that is the guy I'm talking about who's taught me all about the Wookiee world. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go buy some hippie clothes out here at this festival. I'm gonna wear sandals. I'm gonna get a whole hippie outfit. Do you know how much money I would have had to throw down to get that hemp dyed shit?
Oh,
I
yeah.
paid $600 to walk around there in some handmade hemp dyed. I'm like, hell no. Like I see y'all. Who knows what I thought that cost, but I couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's something I don't like about them. It's like I know they might judge me for wearing like a custom suit or something when I know for sure that their outfit probably cost $700,
Well,
you
that's
know?
one thing I don't like about them is the outfits. It's awful.
Yeah, I know. It was a rare occasion when I would let Mikey wear his drug rugs on stage, but sometimes, he'd get the right color combination. It would go with what we were pulling off, but yeah, it's a thing for sure.
So let me dig into it a little bit. So you're out in Kentucky, and who is it that gets you into music? What group, what singer, what was it that you were like, you know what, I need to get an acoustic guitar and start writing songs?
Well, I guess I'm not really sure what did that. I was raised on old country and all that stuff. I had a influential old lady neighbor who I had to take care of as a child that would play me the Kitty Wells and, Lefty Frizzell and all this stuff singing out of tune on a piano. So I kind of was introduced to that world, but the stuff that kind of like really made me feel something was, I come from a really rural area. And when I was about 16, there used to be these barn shows of like screamo, punk rock. Then you'd have somebody like Americana, folk, bluegrass. Because it's so small, you have to include everybody on a bill, you know. And I would say it was the punk scene that made me like, oh, the area where I was taught to feel through music was through church. And that took a turn. even though I still deeply appreciate it. But as far as like music that, discovering like Old Against Me when I was a teenager, like Pavement, these types of things, that
Oh yeah.
world kind of allowed me to get out of, you know, top 40 radio that was accessible to me in a tiny little town. And that, yeah, that was the music. And then when I went to college, I would play shows with post-punk bands and as doing what I'm doing now, you know. But that's where I'm like, oh, I saw these players that they didn't have 50 pedals sitting in front of them. They literally just manipulated their amp. And
Right.
so and so I learned a lot about the emotion you can bring from just knowing a little bit about your minimal equipment, and you could make a whole kitchen feel something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So when you end up going solo and you go to do your first record, what was your, I mean, you were chasing after Jim to co-produce the record. What was that about? Were you in love with the sounds he got on all the My Morning Jacket records?
I think it was, Old Time Feeling really spoke about, and I guess most of my work does, you write what you know, but that one was really about a look from a rural place, a look from Kentucky. I was very specific. I didn't want to record that record in Nashville. I didn't want a lot of people's hands on it that weren't from my state. I felt like I was creating music that could stand up to my Nashville and LA peers at that time. I don't know if that's true, but I felt it, in that time of my life. And it was important for me to have like, Jim James isn't an old person, but he's older than I am. Just kind of like some sort of Kentucky big brother to shepherd me into Kentucky music legacy, you know? I wanted to keep it close to where I'm from and speak out of this place and show a different, I guess, view of what people think of as Kentucky. And I them is one, they do take risk, but two, they're from Kentucky, and that's not the style of music, that people associate with where I'm from. So I was interested in how that could, you know, be a part of the chemistry of that record. And Louisville, where they're from, is just a great music town in general, and actually known more for rock and roll and post-punk than a lot of places. We have Slint, we have now, which when I was cutting my teeth years ago, I'd play with this band called State Champion, who's now Ryan Davis, who actually opened for MJ a lot this past year. And yeah, I wanted to show a little bit more and lean into the diversity of Kentucky music. I thought Jim was the right fit for that.
Yeah, that guy's a genius. I love all this. I love how he switches it up like every record, you know. It's like, nah, like the new record is just fantastic. It's getting played like crazy on the radio. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
great.
It
I,
is.
I, and talk about another group of people with an insane cult following.
Oh God, yeah.
It's obnoxious. Like when I hear somebody refer to them as just Jacket, I'm
Oh,
like, all right, I've clocked you. I don't want to get in that punishing situation. I'm gonna like, good for you. Proud for those boys, but if you're just calling somebody Jacket, I mean, I love them and they've been great to me. And all I'm saying is like I can clock you as like, all right, you're my morning jacket fanatic. If you're just
yeah,
referring to them as Jacket, then I'm like, all right, you're on the next level. So
yeah. If somebody said that to me, I'd be like, Full Metal, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Are you talking
exactly.
about Full Metal? I love that film.
Mhm, mhm.
How did Tyler end up covering one of your songs? Because I mean, that's pretty insane, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely wasn't on my bingo card. At that time I was working out with an old man out in the county. I would work on his farm and help keep up his property and was driving home from there and I had a message from Tyler. And it was the sweetest message. Very you could tell it was super intentional. Um and he was saying a lot of very sweet things about old time feeling and what it had meant to him and how he discovered it and all this stuff. And then he said that him and the boys had cooked up, they had been playing Space and Time and wanted my permission to cover it.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing, but also vague. I didn't know what that meant. I called my manager and I was like, do you think he means like, why would he ask permission just to play it live? You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And so I actually wasn't clear, and none of us were, um, on what that meant until I was later that year. I was playing Luck Reunion, and Tyler's manager and my manager were like, "Do you want to go listen to something in the van?" And we went out to my van and I heard the roughs or like before it was mixed and mastered version of Space and Time. So then it wasn't for a few months that it became clear like, oh, he's meaning he intends to put this on a record. And then I had to keep it a secret for a year.
The
Yeah.
worst.
But it was great. I mean, I think yeah, it's wild. It's allowed one a great songwriter like Tyler doesn't have to cut anyone's songs. He has
Right.
his own. And if he was at it for money, it wouldn't behoove him to cut other people's songs. So I was just shocked and, humbled by how much attention and care he put into it. And it's kind of opened up such a good world for me where I think obviously Tyler, I mean, even since I started following him years ago, has grown by a million people
Yeah.
and steadily climbing, but for me, I think it allowed that song to have legs and catch the ear of people who would have otherwise not listened to it and wouldn't have connected with it. Um, and I'm not saying it's just because Tyler is a man, but I do think that he does allow for men to not feel like they're going to lose something if they acknowledge his vulnerability. And I think that allowed for a different audience and a different group of people to appreciate what I do and actually listen to my music. So I'm super thankful for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely immediately people look at the song credits and be like, well, who is this? And
Mm.
then chase it down. I mean, did that open up some doors also for some kind of co-writing out in Nashville or anything?
Um, well, maybe, I don't know. I've been on the road so much. I've done some co-writing. I don't think I haven't had anybody approach me to say, "Hey, I heard your Tyler cut, like let's write together." But I'm sure that it has, in ways that I don't know, um, helped in that regard. I don't do a lot of co-writing, but it's not hurt. It doesn't hurt. I'm sure when, I go about trying to get some co-writing gigs for Tyler to have cut my song. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
look at all the people that cut Towns Van Zandt songs, like if he was still alive, he'd be co-writing with the whole planet, you know.
Totally. Totally. Yeah,
It is an
exactly.
interesting thing, co-writing. I never really did it much because it just like same with joke writing. Once in a while somebody will come up and give me like a tag or something, and it'll be good, but it's really not my voice or a thing I would think of.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then it feels kind of funky if I tried it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also kind of same with songwriting with me. maybe stuff like bridges, different bridges or tunings, but lyrics and stuff, it would just never happen really.
Yeah, it's hard and I have found very few. I'm a big fan of music, obviously. There's a lot of songs that emotionally capture my ear, but sometimes I have friends who are really good at covering. They can reimagine something or really make it their own where somebody wouldn't even know the difference. I'm not really good at that.
Yeah.
It's suit. So there is an element, I'm open to co-writing, but I feel the same way, especially when it's music. If I'm co-writing for someone else to cut the song, I don't have any hang-ups. But right now I haven't, as far as the lyrics go, I have not had a lot of experience releasing other people's work. It's
Yeah.
just been.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a group, if I'm in a group, no problem. Co-writing, who cares? We're all throwing stuff into the pot. But if it's just my name and it's
Mhm.
me and I'm working on stuff, also, I think everybody works different. With me, I'm not a Nashville type of writer. I don't
Mhm.
just go in and go, all right, from 7 o'clock today to 10, we'll lay down some, write some songs. To
Yeah.
me, I pick up a guitar, and if it comes, whoa, shit, it's here. And if it doesn't, I just go do other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when I'm in Nashville type rights, I still have to be myself, which is I'm a pacer.
Yeah.
And I was writing with a friend of mine, Maddie Diaz, back last January, I think, and another girl, Morgan Nagler, who's an amazing writer. We were at Maddie's house, and we did specifically get together to write. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to pace around your kitchen table. And so they were on the couch, and here I am just looping, looping, looping. And that's one thing I've never written in a writing room. I'm interested. I'm a curious person. I think I would like to do it once, but also I don't do well in movie theaters.
Oh, yeah.
I was like ADD kid who stood up in class and got in trouble because they had a hard time sitting still. So if I can't move around when I'm writing and, be quiet and leave and come back and leave, yeah, I don't do that well. So if that makes the other writers nervous or uncomfortable, then we can't write together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this record, Planting by the Signs. June 20th, it's coming out, everybody. And there's 4 songs right now that you can stream of the record right now. Where did you record it and who produced this one?
So, recorded this in a little town, Sheffield, Alabama, which is like one of the quad cities of Muscle Shoals. So, right by Florence, and um, yeah, that town's doing a really cool thing. If there's any musicians listening, it's basically where they give kind of discount incentives for you to come to record at one of their studios instead of like Nashville or something. And so, it kind of works like all your expenses go towards your recording costs. And then if you exceed a certain amount, it's like percentage off of the overall cost, you'll get a rebate back from
Oh,
the town.
yeah.
It's like an economic incentive. So, being that I have been saving for years to really be the one solely financing the record, went there and couldn't have had a better time. Small towns are my thing, and you could walk out there probably butt naked for about 5 hours and not see another person right outside the studio, be fine, not get arrested or anything. So it was good. As far as co-producers, I produced this one along with my friend Matthew Rowan and Drew Vandenberg, and we've all three worked together before. And it's kind of weird to have three co-producers unless you're a band, but we kind of all, after working with other people and working with them, we've we just have a good working relationship and a pecking order as far as who can understand the other. And it's like this filter of getting something understood in a studio setting, and everybody has their kind of particular roles. So it felt really natural and um also, I've co-produced all my records since I've been putting out music. And I think having three people instead of just me and one other person, it felt like I had to give up, or at least tell myself I had to give up control. And so it made me a better listener instead of me going into the studio thinking I had to have every element figured out. It's so important to walk into a studio with people that you trust in their ability, and you understand like their limitations too.
Yeah,
So then you can just rock and roll, you know?
absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, the record's coming out, and then you're going to be touring all year on the record.
Yep, I've got a few. I'll be in Europe doing my first like headlining tour over there. Everybody light a candle for that. It's tough. Um, but then we'll be heading to the West Coast and wrapping up the year at the in the East Coast with some headline. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you if you come out on the West Coast for sure.
I am. I'll be out there in I think August,
Oh,
September-ish. Mm-hmm.
yeah, let me know. I'll go
Yeah.
for sure. Where are you playing?
Out there, one place.
Troubadour?
Yes, I'll be playing at the Troubadour. Be playing at Pappy and Harriet's.
Oh,
Um,
killer.
I know that's a bucket list for me. And so I've been so fortunate every year for the last several. I've played venues that I've always wanted to play. I just had a meeting with my agent I don't know, about 3 weeks ago or something. He was like, "So what next? Where are you wanting to play?" And I was like, "I want to play the Horseshoe Tavern in Toronto." Like
Yes,
I have before, but I've never headlined it.
right.
And it's just like one of those rock and roll clubs. And I'm like, I want to play that. I want to headline that venue, you know?
That's
And
great.
yeah, last year we got to play Levon Helm Studio in Woodstock. So that was
Oh,
awesome. Yeah.
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 I'd like to shoot a comedy special in there.
I bet you could.
Yeah.
Bet you totally could.
Yep.
You
That'd be,
know, I think it would be cool. I've been thinking, like at my level and everything, sometimes when you have opening bands that are a lot of people, it can get tight in green rooms. And I've gotten, when I'm on the road and doing it so much, one of my diva qualities is I start to hate people. Isn't
yeah.
that crazy? So
Oh,
I've always thought it
that's
would
my
be
whole career.
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, a little unknown secret about me. I oddly start to hate people, but I thought it would be cool. I don't know why more musicians don't take out comedy acts as like a part of their show. Like how cool would that be to it's just a different experience, you know?
Well, you're talking to a guy who's done it many, many, many times because of my music background. But
Mhm.
Marcus King and I did 32 dates across America last year.
Whoa.
Yep, double nights everywhere. Ryman, Beacon, Tabernacle, Wiltern, all of them.
Right.
Yep, and then
Okay.
I opened 2 nights for Metallica at Chase Arena. Uh,
Whoa. That's
opened,
nuts.
I know, opened
So
for
I'm
Rival
learning something.
Sons. It,
Well,
it,
I'm learning some. Sorry, I didn't know that. But
oh,
anyway,
oh
just
no,
in case
no.
you needed that idea, though, just in case you needed a little reminder, you should do that.
Yeah, hit me up anytime. I'll do it. It's an interesting animal. I think it would work better with your type of music. Um, and it works amazing if it's a seated crowd.
Yeah,
If it's seated, I will tell you this, it goes over great every time.
I
If
bet if
it's not,
it's outdoor, it sucks.
oh, I did some outdoor ones, man.
God, it's
And
yeah. Being an opener in any regard, you have to know your damn role, and I've learned the same thing. It one of my first lessons was I was out oddly with Shaky Graves,
Wow.
who you would not expect his crowd to be so rambunctious, but they did not want anything but high energy songs, and I do a lot of ballads and strip down, like tell the band to leave and get on stage. Well, that was that was a tour that I learned how to read a room.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I know exactly what you're talking about, be opening for a seated crowd or outdoors, everybody's talking over you, and
Oh.
man, it makes you have to grow some real thick skin.
Oh man, when I played music, I did a 10-month tour with the Wallflowers, and I was solo acoustic and then they were full band. And I would say about 90% of the shows were fantastic, but the
Mhm.
ones that weren't, where they just turn this way and just start talking and drinking beers,
Mhm.
it is, you're like, you can't even believe you. Oh man, I got like 8 songs left. And those ones I always say are for the money. I go,
Yeah.
this one's for the money tonight. There's zero art.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like it's funny how you kind of have to switch things around. Like, I've been so fortunate for some reason, Tyler and his crew let us go out with them several shows this year and the last couple. And, I had friends who opened with Tyler years ago and they were like, it can be a rough crowd. Well, Tyler's grown, I mean, exponentially rooms since then. So we're going out into stadiums.
Yeah.
And and so I kind of keep the same years ago when I was playing bars, which are really hard to get the attention of.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah, and so me and my drummer at that time, we would play as a two-piece, and our only goal would be to make that bar go silent for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So when you're in a situation like opening for Tyler or Jason Isbell or somebody in a big old room, that still has to be your only goal to just get that attention for 20 seconds. And that's all you can expect if you're
Yeah.
lucky. It's crazy.
Are you a comedy fan?
I am. Yeah. I have been, and the problem with me is, you know, I can't remember anybody's names.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have, I feel like, I was fortunate enough. I've got to sit down with Mark Maron, and I like his stuff. I kind of like a lot of dry humor. Um, but my cousin, the way I was kind of understood comedy, she's in the Second City Conservatory.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to some of those shows like early 20s or something and understood what it meant to do improv and all that. Now that's pretty good, but as far as having my people, I do, but I couldn't tell you their name. Like I think I like Sarah Silverman. Like she was great. I don't know. I don't. The other bad thing about me, anytime I'm asked a question about pop culture, I have to disclose that I haven't owned a TV my entire adult life.
Oh, you know what? I haven't had a TV in 16 years.
Uh-huh.
And when I tell people that, they go, "What?" And I
Yeah.
go, "I don't even care about TV. I
Yeah.
mean, I love comedy and I love music. And when I'm not doing either of those, I'm sitting in silence. I don't need something going on in the background, you know?
Totally.
I love watching comedy stuff. So I watched the Pee Wee Herman documentary.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. I have seen commercials for that online.
yeah, so I watched that 2 nights ago, but it took me about 3 days to get through it because I watch about 30 minutes and then I'm like, all right, I got to get off the couch here. I'm not a sit at home on the couch, turn on the TV. And when I'm on the road in hotel rooms, I never turn the TV on.
Really? I'm different with you there. That's the time that I do.
Right.
Because, and you know what I turn on? This is silly. No matter how you feel about him, It's always the same. And I turn on diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Oh yeah.
And I just watch Guy Fieri talk real loud over little mom and pop restaurants. And there's something that I'm like, okay, I'm trying to create a sense of normalcy for myself.
Right.
So no matter where you are, you turn on the Food Network and there's Guy Fieri, right there. And yeah, it's so I'll get my little Flavor Town fix in a hotel. I do.
Right. To
Mm-hmm.
me, I hit the street. I find the coffee shop that's supposed to be the best coffee. And then
Mm-hmm.
I try to find some architecture or whatever. Because when I
Oh,
toured as a musician younger, it was just a lot of play and burn, just get in the van and leave. So I didn't see anything. So now as a comedian, you're usually in a town about 3 days. You play 5 shows in a town. So I really go look at it. And then
oh,
and then I
that's
fantasize, can I live here? Would I move here?
yeah. I had that same experience. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's why I was gonna say when you said, "Oh, I go find a coffee shop," I'm like, "Well, the only time I'm in a hotel is about 1 in the morning after I've driven there from the venue. We don't get an early check-in, I'm not
Right.
staying in the town I played just to keep my stuff safe or whatever. And so, there's not a lot to see on a little hotel off the highway somewhere. But I have had that experience of staying multiple nights in one city, most recently in Australia.
Oh.
And I wasn't expecting to like that big, I cried when Steve Irwin died or whatever, but uh, I was shocked. I actually enjoyed myself. And most of it was because, like you said, I had the opportunity to get to know where I was at just a little bit. It's an amazing place. And if you love coffee, it's the
Oh.
coffee capital of the world for
Wow,
sure.
really?
You wouldn't think that, but look it up. Look up like where do people say the best coffee is? It's going to be Australia. Yeah, they're really known for they're very, very particular about the way they, pull their espresso shots. They're known for their flat whites.
Wow.
Yeah, they have really high standards for their beans. And even I was shocked at this, but their 7-Eleven coffee
Whoa.
tastes amazing. It's better
Wow.
than anything, half the stuff you can get around here. It was crazy. I was like, guys, like I know you're pumped on these flat whites, but just go down and get one from the 7-Eleven. See what you think. It's
Who were
so
you there with?
my band and I was doing some headlining, but I was also opening for Tyler Childers.
So great.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was so good. It's one of my favorite tours ever. Terrible jet lag
Oh yeah.
both ways. I still think it's got me messed up. I went from waking up at 6 in the morning to now I'm having a hard time getting up at 10 in the morning.
Yeah. I went to
Same.
Japan for 3 weeks, and the
Mm,
longer you're there, the more fucked you are when you come back.
that's about the same time frame as I was in Australia, and it's a day ahead. We watched the Super Bowl. It was a day off, and we started watching the Super Bowl on a Monday there at 10 a.m.
Super Bowl Monday.
Yeah, it was Super Bowl Monday. So good. Go Eagles.
What guitar you play?
Um, well, my soul guitar, I have a 69 Guild Starfire 4,
Cool.
and I don't take it on the road anymore. I was told the whole time I did I was stupid, and they were right. So, my main guitars now, I have a Gibson 335,
Great.
and last year, or I guess 2 years ago, last year sometime, um, I got a 66 Mustang.
Oh, cool.
I love it.
Cobain.
Oh, it's so cool. Well, it just, it just feels good. I'm not a lead guitar player. In fact, I have a really hard time. I've never learned theory. I could tell you aspects of it, but I have a severe math learning disability. And even the most simple things like memorizing the letters of my strings.
Oh, I'm
It,
the same way. You know how I used to do it? It was like, what was it? So it's EADG. So it was eat all day, great burgers every time or something. That's how I remembered it
Yeah,
because I wouldn't remember either.
yeah. Mine is Eric always drinks good beer every day. I think that's like, or something like, yeah, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But the problem is with me, even if I know that, up until this record, I always tune my guitar down a whole step.
right.
It's D across the board. And that makes a lot of enemies with my other musicians and anyone playing with me, and also my guitars, because that was the issue with that old Starfire. The bridge on it, it just wasn't built to be tuned down a whole step,
Yeah,
you know?
loose.
Yeah. So I'm at best like a pretty novice rhythm player. Not really. I'm a little better than that, but it's, I can do what I can do, and I'm not trying to rip a solo out there. One day I will. That'll be for me in my 60s. I'm gonna shock the world and come out and just be a ripper, you know?
Yeah, I just a lot of times I had no idea what chords I was playing at all. I'd throw capo on and they would say, what key is that in? I go, I don't know. I'm just doing a G shape with the capo on the third fret. I
Yep.
don't know. And I didn't know because I learned guitar way, way deep in life because I was a lead singer for so long. And then I was like, you know what? I got to write my own music also, not just lyrics and melody.
Yep.
So I got learned guitar in the VCR and they're just showing you shapes.
Yeah, well, I should go back to my first guitar teacher and ask for my money back, because I was about 14 when I started taking lessons, and I took them for about a year and a half, and but I was writing at the same time. And
Yeah,
so I'd
same.
come in with these I'd learn a chord, write a whole song that was honestly, for a 14-year-old, I still stand by them, clearly not great, but they show promise. And this guy, what he would do instead of teaching me how to play the guitar, he would noodle on it and make it sound cool.
Yeah.
And so I kind of hold a grudge against that, but I'm also thankful because it did boost my confidence, in writing. And so
Right.
there I was just, and I still, like, I'll have a whole song just with one chord, but I can write the hell out of a melody over it, you know, and that's because of paying money to be taught guitar and never learning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you something that you say that's interesting because when I was writing my record, I'm playing pretty simple types of chords and I really loved the melody and the lyrics. But I had like a guy like David Emmergluck from the County Crows come in, and he would lay down these kind of riffs in there, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, "God, this sounds amazing!"
Yeah, the color chord guy. Well,
Yeah,
Matt Rowan, who is co-producer, also I've played with him for 13 years. We started playing together when I went under the Savage Radley early in college, and he's a savant with any instrument, and his voicing on things, it's you believe me, Matt used to also play on the road with me. And so I've had to replace him as a guitarist several times. And nobody has Matt's inclinations.
right.
It's just something you have to grieve. And I've played with great guitar players. They're all special in their own way, but because of the particular way I learn, and I also have obsessive compulsive disorder, when I'm having a new guitarist come in, I'll say, "You're playing too hard. Like,
Yeah,
you're not making the sound the same." And I'll say, "You need to go back and listen. And you're missing a note." Like, even though I couldn't tell them that what note it is they're missing, I'll say, "You're not playing the entire thing." A lot of people, you know, are really good at improvising and want improvising on stage while they're playing, but with my brain, until I'm really comfortable with playing songs live, I want them exactly like my record. And
Right.
that's just my OCD. But I can hum out that my thing with like what you're talking about, somebody coming in and putting down stuff with my limited music, I guess, vocabulary. If a musician cannot decipher what I'm humming and find it for themselves and expect me to write their chart, we can't play together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, listen, and that's fine, but that's kind of a requirement. If you're going to play for me, you have to be able to do that. And that's a language that Matt and I, we have a very insane specific chemistry when it comes to tone and what parts are in my mind, you know?
Yeah, I understand it. I understand it. And all the good kind of alt country and singer-songwriters, they all, if they're really good, they have a guy like a Jay Bennett, you know. They have these guys that color these songs, Mike Campbell, Heartbreakers,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. They have these signature, things that come in that are so monumental to the song that
Mhm.
when they're not there, you're like, yeah, well, it doesn't sound that good.
Yeah, and it's that's what's interesting. And I think it's just a moment of growth too with people. You at some, I think with the music industry, you know, one with streaming, it's like no wonder people are so selfish. You're literally splitting a fraction of a penny as far as
Yeah,
stuff.
it's crazy.
But when it comes to recording and playing, you have to just trust the process and let other people's gifts help you. And you can't do everything. I do have some recording equipment. I've got a Tascam 388 I love to fiddle with. But in my lifetime, I'm not going to be a Steve Albini. You know what I mean?
Nope.
I'm not going to be a great engineer. I'm not going to be a great guitar player in my lifetime. That ship has sailed. I can get better,
Yeah.
but why would I be so hard-headed to say like, "Oh, I want to write every part of the instrumentation"? Let the people who have been given and cultivated that gift give to your gifts. And so I know my role, which is lyrics, melody, and hair. And so it's just like you got that's what I can bring, and I know that, and I just work within those parameters.
Yeah. Well, listen, great talking to you.
Oh yeah.
And the record's out June 20th. Planting by the Signs. I don't know
Oh,
why I have a hard time saying that album title.
it's all right. It's kind of it's a mouthful, but yeah, check out the record.
It's incredible. I loved it. And I'm not just blowing smoke, man. When I heard it, I immediately said, yeah, I want to have her on. And I love music. I'm an absolute music freak. And every couple of weeks, I find stuff that I've never heard of. Whether it be listening to like David Frick on XM radio or somebody sending something over to me, I'm constantly looking myself. I'm
Yeah.
always enjoy finding new stuff, and this and the MJ Lenderman record are just two of my tops right now for 25.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, come out and see us.
Oh, I'll be there for sure.
Love it.
Yeah,
All right.
just hit me up and let me know when it is, and I will be there.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, you have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Bye
See ya.
bye.